Hi, I am acting teacher Michael Bean. I've been doing this for 20 years and I've been leading the myfreeactingclass.com lessons for almost a year now. Whoop, whoop. Coming up on our year anniversary. You can expect more information about that coming soon. Today's lesson, this is the second time lately that we have done a practice exercise. So I have a short scene for you. I'm going to read it with you today. Then we're going to go over it in some detail. I'm going to go over my revised list of questions, so that you can see that, I actually do continue to look at and revise the questions that I ask and try and make them clearer and cleaner. And so it's a little bit different than the last time we looked at it. My hope is that some of you will get inspired to use this as a scene for practice, to connect with a friend or somebody in class, I've plugged a number of times the site weaudition.com. They don't pay me any money to do that. That's what I use for my auditions, because then I don't have to schedule friends to do it with. But that if you record one of a take of the scene and then upload it on YouTube and send me a link, or send me a copy to info@myfreeactingclass.com, then I will be able to go over it in next week's or one of the Tuesday lessons where we do self-tape review. So just a quick reminder for anybody who has not seen that, ta-da, myfreeactingclass.com. There's the website. And oh, dang it, sorry, there was a scroll down here. Here we go. Tuesdays, on camera skills and self-tape review. There's a practice exercise link right here. And then there's the email link. Email your self-tapes to info@myfreeactingclass.com. Now, Wednesdays, the acting technique and special guests, this link here, practice script. This is where I'm going to upload the practice script as soon as we are done class. So if you're like, I want to copy this PDF, I want to practice this, it is right here, and I will remind folks at the next lesson and the next and the next. That is just this little blue link. You click on that and you will be able to find the practice script for yourselves. Today we are looking at a script from a movie called Clouds. This came out in October of 2020, so it has already aired, so we're not getting in trouble by showing you any pages of the script, but it is something that I helped somebody audition for, so I have the breakdown. And so we're going to go over what casting wrote about the character, and you'll be able to see that, and we'll go over 2 pages from this 4-page audition. Now, the scene was written for an older sister, but there's no reason that you cannot play this as a younger sister. So I've looked at the scene, and I think that it's a good 2-page scene for practice. The movie's already aired, so you don't have to worry about the fact that if you're a little bit the wrong age. The point is that the emotional arc of the scene is interesting, and that there are good things to react to, multiple eye lines, and so I think it's really good practice. Christina, there's a trap in this one for you. We'll talk about it when we get there. But for the moment, Christina, will you read Alli for me? And Claudine, do you want to read today as well?
Yeah, I can.
Perfect. So, Christina, if you could read Alli, Claudine, if you could read, I think the character's name is Laura. Yes, and then Duke, if you could read the rest of the characters, just because there's Sammy and Rob. So if you can read those 2 characters, then I will read the stage direction and we'll go all the way through. So let's start by looking at the script, so that when I'm referencing anything else, we can come back and look at the script. Here it is, the character Alli from Clouds. So, interior, dining room, night. Sammy and Zach's family are quietly eating dinner as Laura comes in and takes a seat. Claudine, that's you.
He's too tired to come down.
Duke, that's you. You have to unmute yourself.
Oh, I thought you were in control of that. Okay, taking Yep. I'll say it again. Should I leave?
Let's take it
course
again from the
not.
top. So Sammy and Zach's family are quietly eating dinner as Laura comes in and takes a seat.
He's too tired to come down.
Should I leave?
Of course not.
Laura tears up a piece of bread as she hesitates to say something that's on her mind.
What's wrong, Mom?
Laura looks at Rob. He explains.
We spoke to the doctor today, and well, he doesn't think he's not sure if Zach will be able to hold on until the prom.
Everyone stops eating. Alli fights tears.
But that's like a month away.
The air is sucked out of the room as the realization sets in. No one can speak for a moment. Gently, Laura reaches over and squeezes Grace's hand, wishing she could shield her from the pain.
I know it's hard to hear, and I only bring it up because I know how much Zach has been looking forward to prom. Now that he and Amy are back together, and well, I was hoping we could all figure out a way to still give it to him.
How?
We were thinking we could throw a party to end all parties, birthday, graduation, prom, every party he'll ever miss, all rolled into one.
The varsity? It's only 2 weeks away. What if we did it there?
Maybe you and Amy could get the whole school to come.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for reading the script with me. Let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail, and we'll take a look at the breakdown. So when your talent agent sends you a breakdown, it'll have a little more detail than this, but I'm just going to, but I will show you what we've got. But like I just cut and pasted the parts that were relevant. Clouds, feature film, Farsight Films Limited, Warner Brothers, the producers, the director, and in this case, it's interesting. They've listed the last movie by this director. And so sometimes when you look up a director on IMDb, you have to go like look at all of their past movies to go like, I wonder which one it is that they or feel is relevant here. But in this case, super straightforward. Justin Baldoni, 5 Feet Apart. They've given you the name of his last movie, so you can go and watch the trailer for that and get a sense of it. Writer, revisions by Kara Holden, based on the book Fly a Little Higher by Laura Sobiek. So that means there's a book. You can go read the synopsis of the book on Wikipedia. You could get more of the story if you were auditioning for this and it was not yet produced. One of the things that I don't recommend doing, since this is an already produced movie, is don't go watch this scene and then try to recreate it, because that was not available when this was auditioning, and who knows how it changed. Plus that scene, they had a professional actress who was hired for it, directed by the director, it was all edited together. What's interesting to me in terms of practice is going through the scene and trying to find your own take on Alli. Now, these are the actual audition sides for Alli. There was one other scene, that was just a couple of words. I can show you that one if you like, but it's really just like there are maybe 2 or 3 more lines, and that was everything that was available and to audition for Alli. Alli's written as the older sister, but I've removed her age from the breakdown. This is what's called a breakdown for the character. So Alli, pragmatic and slightly more straight-edged than her siblings. She's the kind of person who, when she's nervous, bites one nail compulsively while simultaneously watching out for her manicure. It's a balancing act. She's great at it. Though still young herself, she's the moral compass of the household and second in command to parents Laura and Rob. If someone is thinking it, Alli is the one who's saying it. Despite the dire circumstances facing her brother, she attempts to be a source of constant support for her siblings. So all useful information. Pragmatic, straight-edged, constant support for her siblings, moral compass. The storyline, based on the book Fly a Little Higher by Laura Sobiek, Clouds follows the true story of her teenage son Zach, who was diagnosed with a rare form of terminal bone cancer and given a year to live. He started writing songs and won. Clouds hit #1 on the iTunes singles chart in 2013, and the same week he passed away, shortly after turning 18. So true story, the heart wrencher, pull on the heartstrings, Let's go to IMDb and watch a little piece of the trailer, which we can do. Again, I'm not going to show you anything with Alli, but that will give you the tone of the show as easily as humanly possible, which is where I like to start thinking about it is what is the style of this show? Now, if you are prepping this for practice, I highly recommend that if you are an adult, that you prepare the role of Laura. Although if you want to prepare the role of the dad, he's got one line, but there's a whole bunch of like really great reactions here. Those scenes are really, really challenging, where most of what you're doing is reacting without lines. The mom has more arc, and if you are a young person, I recommend preparing the role of Alli. When we'll look at the scene again, and you can see that there's nothing sort of explicitly in Alli where the character has to be older in order to tell the story. Right, so Sammy and Zach's family is too tired to come down. Right, so Laura comes in, takes a seat. Basically, if you are playing Laura, then you've got to enter, and you can choose to do that by just like sitting down into it. Yesterday, I talked about marks and setting marks for yourself. If you don't want to watch yourself on camera, then you just set it up so you got your mark. Something that is really normal for actors to do both on set and in auditions. So like, okay, so here's where I want to end up. And so I'm just going to start here, and then I'm just going to sit down into it. Right, so you can do that. You don't need to be standing up because we're not going to need that in the tape anyway. If it helps you, great. But if you just wanted to mark it, like if I wanted to mark it and make sure I showed up exactly here, I basically just keep my hand on the chair. And I'm like, okay. And the way that I sit down and the way that I look at everybody in my moment before, that tells us information about how the character is feeling and what's going on, right? He's too tired to come down, right? So it's not just the line at the beginning, there's that moment before of like, okay, like this is a thing. And Laura, of course, at this point already has this information that her son might not live until the end of the month. At the end, and so in this scene, if you're reading the character of Laura, then you're figuring out how to deliver this information. Now, if you're playing Alli, who I believe was written 2024, which means that they're going to see actors between the ages of like 20 and probably 30 to play this character. Certainly the actress who I helped put on tape for it was a mother herself, and in her late 20s. So the very sort of broad range with this kind of thing. It's really about how you play on camera as opposed to what your actual age is. If you're playing Alli, then the scene starts up here. Remember, these are the actual audition sides for Alli. So the scene starts with when your mom comes in, like you're there with dinner. You might want to start down on your plate. So on action, that first moment is you look up, you see your mom, and it's like, okay, something's up. Partly because my brother's not with her, but also like something's up with her. Sammy, should I leave? Or of course not, what's wrong, mom? Now, if you're prepping Alli, you might want to consolidate, or put mom and Rob together into the same eyeline. So Laura and Rob, the same eyeline, because this information, what's wrong, mom? We spoke to the doctor today. When we are watching just you as Alli, there's no reason that this can't be the mom. Like there's, I don't think there's a compelling reason to split up the eyeline. The risk is that's just going to be confusing in telling the story. You might want to put Sammy on the other side of the. You basically, if I had my actor, I would put them on one side of my screen. If I was prepping Alli, I would look at the actor for the mom, I would look at the actor for the dad, and then I would put Sammy on the other side of the camera because there's very little interaction with Sammy, and then I'm okay just looking at a spot for like the beginning. Sammy says, "Should I leave?" And then you're back to like looking at your mom. Right, so there's maybe these two moments where you have to take in Sammy if you're Alli, and the same thing if you are prepping Laura, right? So if you're prepping either the mom or the dad, then you could consolidate. Basically, most of the scene is with Alli, and then you've got this other relationship with Sammy, the other person. Now, if you decide to keep the sort of mom and dad lines, as they are, which of course you'd want to do for an audition, then you could put your spouse beside you because you're not really looking at them as they talk. right? It's like, does that look like, right, right? There's even the, you can even do the like, I'm reaching over and like, taking their hand for support, right? We're just going to see that little bit in the shoulder, but it does help tell the story. You certainly don't want to do any part of the scene looking fully sideways. But I think it's just fine to place a character, beside you, because it's really just a look. So that's what I mean, Duke, when I said that, it's, you've got complex eye lines there because you've got three different people and three different relationships. The way that I recommend breaking that up is the person who you are interacting with the most, make that the reader, look at a real person if you possibly can, put them on one side. Sammy, who you have just a little bit of interaction with, you put on the other side, and your wife who's delivering all this information, and maybe you want to like be support of you put beside you. So that's option one. The other one would be to consolidate both kids into a single eye line and have your wife be the other eye line. And if you were setting it up like that, for anybody who's looking at this, who's thinking about doing either Rob, the dad, or Laura, the mom, I would say turn your chair so that your spouse is here beside you, and then I'm talking to my kids. I'm talking to my kids, and then I'm talking to my spouse who's here beside me, and and then with that sort of reaching out to hold the hand, I can even use the desk that's in front of me, which helps me just feel more grounded because I'm touching a real thing, and I'm like, of course I have to be careful not to shake the desk, as I'm squeezing her hand, but that's a technical thing that's fairly easy to deal with. So in terms of eye lines, I think that that's probably your best bet. Let's go back to the script quickly and take a look at that. Okay, we spoke to the doctor today, and well, he's not sure Zach will be able to hold until prom. So this is the trap for you, Christina. Alli fights tears. Oh boy, the tears are written right in there. However, nobody mentions the tears. So because nobody says, why are you crying? Or I'm sorry, I'm crying. Like, because there are no lines mentioning the tears, the important thing for the actor is to read this for emotional information, the and not to like push to leak. That whether or not you leak is not nearly as important as if we get the emotional arc of the scene. That this is shocking information, that you care about your brother. The last thing we want to see is another actor trying to like push their eyes to cry or making their sad face. Ideally for film and TV, you want this to come across as honestly as humanly possible. Everyone stops eating. Well, obviously that will have ended before, but what you could do is like, you can have maybe you had the plate before that, and then whoa, okay, from now on, I'm just here. I'm just looking at, my mom and dad. What's going on? The air is sucked out of the room. Like, how do you physicalize this? That's something that we can talk about. I would, when we see the self tapes, but I think that we can't see the air being sucked out of the room. It is a very, it's the kind of note that you would see in a novel. And we get these in scripts all the time where they say like her eyes harden or the air is sucked out of the room, etc. And so I think you look at that and you think, okay, like what does that mean, the air sucked out of the room? Like if I'm going to put feeling words to it, if I'm going to put, experience, it's like, oh wow, like it's just that oh wow moment. So is there like, do I touch myself? Do I lean back? Do I lean in? What's going to help me tell that story of like, and yeah, and I think that that language of like being taken aback, right, that little bit of just that little bit of backup, can be really useful there. And also anything that comes across as self-comforting behavior, right? So for me, like this is like really normal behavior when I'm like, scared or nervous, or I'm trying, is this sort of like almost unconscious, like attempting to calm myself down, but for some people that looks like this, and for some people that like their hands get into their face, and it's not about choreography. It's not about here's what that should look like. It's about, because we can't watch the air get sucked out of the room, you're going to have to physicalize this feeling. And hopefully it's enough to just make that strong choice about what it is, and your body just takes care of it when you hear your mom say it. And if you do that take and it doesn't communicate clearly, or if you want to help it communicate clearly, you are going to have to physicalize it in some way. Yeah, and so thinking about, again, not choreography, not here's what I want it to look like, here's where I want my eyes to leak, finding the like, whoa, I just got really like big scary news and I'm processing it and I need to deal with it and I'm having the feels about it. Telling that story with your body in some way is going to help you get through this. Okay, and then if you're the mom or the dad, then looking at everybody and seeing that that's how they're feeling and going like, yeah, right. You've had whatever a day to process this. We spoke to the doctor today. So you've had less than a full day to process it, but you had some time, and you know how hard this is going to be for the kids. So your job, I think, as the parent is to, while giving this a reasonable arc, like take care of them as you deliver this information. Uh, Really not a good idea to wipe tears here unless you are actually leaking at that point. It almost always looks terribly fake for somebody to be like, oh, 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 because at this range, you can see that my eyes are not actually watering. And so if I wipe pretend tears, then basically I'm just indicating to the audience that I'm being fake. So it's a bad idea in almost always to wipe pretend tears. What you can do, especially if you're doing a scene where it's necessary, is you can take a moment to compose yourself. Basically hide from the camera in some small way for a moment. Right. So I'm taken aback, and then there's like, oh my god. Okay, what do we do? Like now that's like maybe a Michael Bean version. Probably if I recorded that and watched it back, I'd be like, man, that doesn't quite work, and I would need to tweak it. But some version of like, I I need like just a second. Okay, now I'm gonna come back. You will do the same work as wiping tears away without you having to force feeling. If you're prepping Alli here, and if you're prepping Laura, then you've got to see your daughter having that strong emotional experience and react to it in some way, right? So that informs this line, and you don't have something explicitly comforting, so you might have to do that with behavior. You might have to sort of lean in and find that moment of like, hey, it's going to be okay, even though you can't say, hey, it's going to be okay, or I get it, it's hard, whatever that piece of subtext is for you. You might have to find a way to communicate that with physical behavior, with sound. We were thinking we could throw a party. That I'm going to take that reaction first, or I'm going to have that moment of reacting to her line before I just jump into my line. And that's where the life of it lives, is in between these lines, in the reactions, et cetera, et cetera. The varsity, as I hope was clear listening to Duke say the line, is like a venue, like a performance venue. So the I want to show you quickly the story questions, and talk very quickly about those. Oh, I did pull up clouds for you. If you decide to prep this, I recommend looking it up on IMDb. So here we go. Clouds, young musician, cancer, a few months to live, makes an album, All right, here's the official trailer. There's this little clip at the very beginning that I think gives you a really good sense of what this show is like. Incidentally, this ended up being a Disney movie. I think it's on Disney Plus, and so that gives you a sense of how wholesome ultimately it is going to be.
Question number one: what do you have to offer? And not even just to a university, to the world. What do you want to do with your one wow and precious life?
Oh, you get a sense of where that one's going to go? Yes, we do.
I still don't understand why she'd want.
Then we look at the director, Justin Baldoni. Okay, so incidentally, if you first pulled them up on IMDb, you would not see any of these things. You'd be like, wait, what? But that's because all the actor credits are always listed first. So all we have to do is go hide or jump to director, and then you would see director. We've got 5 feet apart. This is the movie that they listed in the breakdown and then before that, My Last Days, a TV series documentary. So the documentary is about folks with terminal illnesses. It's a documentary series. And then 5 Feet Apart, the movie, they specifically list in the breakdown: a pair of teenagers with cystic fibrosis meet in a hospital and fall in love. Though their disease means they must avoid close physical contact. You watch it. Now this is what you would watch, if you were prepping the audition. Is not the trailer for Clouds, because that would not exist yet. But you would watch the trailer 2 minutes and 24 seconds on imdb.com, for 5 Feet Apart, and that would tell you what you need to know about the style. Claudine, did you want to jump in with a question there somewhere?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
So if we go into story questions, this is the simplified, down to 8 of them. Style, okay, this is a Disney, like family movie, heartfelt, emotional. It doesn't matter what words you put to it. What matters is that you have a sense of what you're talking about. And so the best thing you can do for that, I think, is go watch video clips and go like, oh yeah, it's like that. Story, okay, teenager with cancer, publishes music, and sort of like finds meaning and connection at the end of his life. And there's the sort of a loving family there. You get a lot more detail if you wanted to, because like I said, it's based on a book. It'd be very easy to go find. And one of the things that I think is important, although I sort of took it off as an explicit question on here, is what's your story, right? If you're playing Laura, then the answer to this question, is not just like what's the whole story of the movie, but what's your story? Your story is that like you're trying to, like, is the part of it that speaks to you is like, I'm trying to support my son through the end of his life, or is your story like, I'm trying to keep my family together, through this really hard thing, and so it's all about the love and the family connection, or is it all about the son, or is it something else? Arc, the change from the beginning of the story to the end. So this isn't just like a sad scene with sad news that's sad and then it's sad. And you could play it like that. And who knows, it may even play that way in the actual movie. But for an audition script, arc is very, very important, because change is how you show us that you are a storyteller. So for if you're prepping Alli, then maybe the arc is has something to do with like, I'm noticing, that something's going on. I get this piece of big information. Okay, and we've internalized it enough, that we're like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to make this happen. And so finding those, jumping ahead a little bit, strong feeling or opinions about each of those pieces in the arc is going to be really important for you telling your story and telling a really like an interesting and alive story. Relationship with each person you're talking to, the emotional relationship, the script relationship, because sometimes the character will be the mom, but the emotional relationship will really be like they act like they're best friends, and vice versa. Sometimes the script relationship will be the mom, but they act like they're worst enemies. Obviously that's not what's going on here, but just relationship includes for me emotional relationship. Descriptive words, you can certainly pull those words from the breakdown. Right, she's the moral. If you're Alli, you've got moral compass. Like slightly more straight edge or conservative. Strong feeling or opinion about each person in the scene, each thing that's happening, really important. How you personalize it, what you use from personal life to make it make sense, and then how you turn that into an objective. Because I think, particularly if you are prepping Alli, then it can be. Then the risk is that you come through the scene without having an objective, without having something you want the other characters to do or feel. And I think that if you sort of distill down the version of this story that makes sense to you, you're like, okay, here's how I want my mom to feel. Then that will give you your version of this story. And I would love to. It's a short scene, so it shouldn't take you too long to tape it. But it is complex with multiple eye lines, and a good emotional arc. So hopefully you can get excited about it. Do any of the 3 of you have questions about that? And those of you who are watching at home, you can always email me with questions about it. And remember that it will be on myfreeactingclass.com. You just scroll down to Wednesday, and there it'll be practice script, Clouds. Click on that, you should just download. or you can always email me info@myfreeactingclass.com. So questions?
Okay, I have one, right? You know when after she like says, after she like cries, and then that deep thing in the room, would it look weird if you took like a deep breath before your mom spoke, or like should you like, or like would it be weird if you did that?
It would be weird if you choreographed it and it was totally fake. Anything you do that is choreographed and totally fake is gonna look weird. It doesn't, right? Like that I know that that's like a broader answer, but if you were like, yeah, here I'm going to take a really deep breath, but we can see as an audience because the camera sees you in so much detail. It's really like somebody standing who's like 2 feet away from you. And if somebody's standing 2 feet away from you, if they're only this far apart, they're seeing so much detail on your face that if I'm like, Christina, I'm not actually feeling anything, but I'm taking a deep breath and pausing because I want you to think I am. Of course, we're going to see how fake that is. So if on the day, like when you tape it for real, you actually find enough real feeling that you're like, oh God, like I just need a moment, and you take that deep breath. Okay, rock on, go for it. Like if you really want that pause to be there, my recommendation would be that you script the subtext for the pause. Right, like basically, if you take the pause, it's got to be full. It can't just be like, and then I waited and took a breath. Or often that won't sort of tell us the story. But instead, you would think, like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to handle it without him. What do we even do now? This is really confusing. Mom, what do we do? Right? So that you've actually got lines. They're just not lines you say out loud. And sometimes that'll really do the trick there. So that because we just never ever want it to become about you focusing on you focusing on here's what I look like, here's what I sound like, here's what I want, how I want it to come across. Instead, we want you out here in the story. And so that's where you'd want to connect it to objective as well. If your objective is, I want to get my mom to tell me how, like, what to do. Mom, just tell me what to do. Like, how are we going to make this better? Then there's lots of different tactics there. You can be nice about it. You can plead. And ideally your choices are in line with what you've got in the breakdown. Which is that Alli is their moral compass. Now, like we'd be. It'll be bending it a little bit, if you decide to get Christian, to practice at Claudine, in the sense that you essentially would just ignore what it says in the breakdown, right? Like you would want to, if so, for anybody who can't see Claudine right now, this is Claudine. There she is. La. So Claudine's son is, I think, 8, and so if you are watching this and you have a younger person you're supporting who wants to use the scene for practice, just ignore what it says in the breakdown, right? Like you might read it for information, of course, or so that you can be like, oh, that's, now I see one more example of what a real breakdown looks like. But then you would just let your young person play this in something that is closer to them inside the story. Right, we still want to be constrained by the script. I would prefer that you don't like rewrite the script to suit you if you're using this for practice, just because that's not ever available to us when we're doing professional auditions. But I don't know, it's their practice. You do what you like. Thanks for sticking around a little bit late for me. As I always think I'm going to be able to go through this fast, and it just takes time, even to do the bare bones of a breakdown for a script. So it's a wonderful and delightful, complicated art form that we're practicing, telling stories and imagining ourselves inside of them. So do feel free to email me if you have questions that didn't come up. Check out the scene. The PDF will be there within 5 minutes of me ending this. So by the time any of you watch it on YouTube, it's there. It's there now. And then I hope to see some scenes from you, whether it's this or something you've auditioned for lately, or a different practice exercise. Please send them to info@myfreeactingclass.com, and I'll look at them in next week's self-tape review on Tuesday. Bye, everybody.
Thank
Right.
you. Okay, bye.
Right.